Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to Sutton Motorsports Garage. I got my Polaris 500 Sportsman here. It's got a problem with the cooling fan not kicking on, so the engine's getting hot. Today I'm going to try and figure out what's going on with it and see if we can get it working again. Okay, so at the front of the machine, the first thing I like to do, you got 4 fuses right here. You want to go ahead and test all those fuses. You can run a test light across both sides of them with the key on. You should have power on both sides of those. You can also pull them out and check and make sure that they're clean. And you get a lot of corrosion on these machines, going through the mud and all that kind of thing. So you want to make sure they're clean and that you actually have power to them. And so then the next thing, which I did check that out. So now down here, what I'm going to do, you can see you got the wire coming from the fan. You got this wire here coming from the fan, and then this wire here is the temperature switch in the radiator. So what we'll do, the fan wire, we'll go ahead and unplug it and put 12 volts to it and see if the fan kicks on. If the fan does kick on, we'll plug that back in. Then we'll come back to the temperature switch. We'll unplug that. We'll put a jumper wire across that, which is basically shorting out the switch, and turn the key on and see if the fan kicks on at that point. And if it kicks on, that means the temperature switch is bad. And if not, then we have a problem somewhere else. Okay, so I pulled the wire for the fan up, and I used a couple of nails. You can use paper clips, or if you have wires that'll fit down in there, but you're basically just trying to come up with a connection. So what I'll do is I'll put the 12 volts to the fan. We hear the fan kick on, so we know the fan is good. So now we'll move on to the temperature switch. Okay, so I've unplugged the temperature switch, and I ran a wire across the other 2 wires that hook up to it. So I'll turn the key on, and I got nothing. So the temperature switch, most likely not the problem. Next thing we're going to check is the relay. You can see that right up behind the fuse block there. And the relay is basically just a big switch. So you've got 12 volts on one side of it with a ground, and then you've got a heavier 12 volts on the other side of it with a ground, which actually powers the fan. So when I turn the key on, don't know if you can hear that, but the relay, you hear the relay clicking. So the relay is working and it does have power to it, but we don't know if we have power going to the fan. We just have power going to the relay at that point. So we can just hook our test light up to it and see what we have for voltage, or that we are getting power. And we'll pull the relay out, and we can test these. So we have power there. So we should have 2 positives and 2 negatives. We only have 1 positive. So we're not getting power on the other side of the relay. I actually did go through with a multimeter and test the wires. The wires are all good. And there is one more component in this system, which is a 10 amp breaker. The 10 amp breaker is actually located underneath the seat along the frame. You'll see it right there. Okay, so there's your air box there, and it runs along the frame. I've heard of them being in different positions along the frame here, but it should be somewhere along the frame. So that I can pull out. So there's your 10 amp breaker, and we can test that. We should have continuity across that. So let's take a look at that. I got the multimeter set on ohms, 20,000 ohms. We'll test it. Okay, it goes to 0. And when we put this across the breaker, it should also go to 0. And we're getting nothing. So that tells us that breaker is no good. I got this breaker on Amazon. It was like $10. You can get them on eBay. They did have the original Polaris breaker, which I believe was $70. So if you feel strongly about that, you can go ahead and get the original Polaris breaker. I'm good with this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in and see what that does for us. Okay, so I installed the breaker. And then back to our temperature switch in the radiator. I ran my jumper wire back across that. So now when I turn the key on, we should hear the fan kicking on. So that should solve the problem. Okay, so we should be all set with our fan. I'll put the machine back together, take it out, run it around a little bit, let it idle, make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to. So hopefully this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.